Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Tuesday night in the Spotlight. Tonight, joining me is Sara Kuz of The Conscious Passenger, and she is chatting with us tonight about energy therapy and revealing the hidden roots of behavior. Sara is a seeker who has explored many different career avenues, but none have hit home with the necessity and importance of sharing human design and psychosomatic energy therapy. After exploring mathematics, sciences, languages, and philosophy with an end goal of understanding life and human connections, all of that knowledge comes together in both modalities. We are humans navigating relationships, interactions, experiences, all of which can have a lasting effect upon us. When the effect is negative, it may stick around as an energetic effect that can grow to have physical repercussions. Human design can highlight the mechanics of life to make different choices moving forward, and psychosomatic energy therapy can identify the energetic blocks that have taken root to dissolve them and return to a centered self. An intense curiosity drives Sara to learn more and dive deeper, with holistic nutrition as her current education while growing her business, The Conscious Passenger. So thank you, Sara, so much for joining us and everyone else who's getting on the live right now. So, Sara, can you tell us a little bit more about what is psychosomatic energy healing? Because I've never actually heard of that before.
It's not common as a single modality. There seems to be a lot of people who use it as a secondary or in like a toolkit. But psychosomatic energy therapy has two parts. First is the assessment to identify where your energy levels are at, what the current conflict your body is ready to let go of. And then I can also measure which organs are out of balance energetically as well. And I forgot to say, I also can find the size of the conflict. And then the journey begins when you commit to the therapy. So that involves homeopathic remedies. They have different remedies, some for acute issues, and then the rest are for the specific conflicts. And then depending on the size, there's a certain amount of rounds and thus a certain amount of time that would generally take to dissolve the conflict. And we all have a number of them. We all have different conflicts, and I'm very happy to talk about mine. So I'm sure we'll do that today.
So this is actually the Reba machine.
Yes, this is what I use the Reba device for. Yeah.
So I know what it is.
You do, yes.
Awesome. All
Yes.
right. So, and it's really, really fascinating. Like, I know when I had my session, it was like mind blowing. And then we did it distantly, and I was still like, holy, it's so incredible. So, how exactly did you become aware of this modality, and what kind of brought you into an interest with it?
Well, it was part of, I worked for a naturopath for a while, and it was part of their kind of toolkit. As I mentioned, people have it as part of a toolkit. And there was one specific person who ordered remedies for themselves and just kind of said, like, these really work. And for some reason that stood out. And I was like, what is this? So I entered into my own journey, and I was tested for the conflict I needed to get rid of, or I was ready to get rid of. And some of the information that arose, I was like, holy crap, like, yeah, this is where I'm at. Okay, I have some work to do. And then it wasn't until probably working through the second conflict where I realized how significant the results were. So it wasn't just me who was being affected by the changes I was making, it was the people around me. And I was like, holy smokes. It was just these subtle, like, they didn't know what was happening, but I'm listening to the change in the way they were acting or speaking. And I was like, what? And I knew it was connected. So after that, with the intention of actually helping that person's practice, I signed up for the training. And after that, I signed up for the training. I went to the training. At the training, I learned about human design. A month later, my friend basically gave me the human design websites and is like, here you go. And then I was given the opportunity to work in Harmony. And then I was given the opportunity to actually purchase the Reba device, which isn't available for sale brand new anymore. And after that, like, the rest is history. I was like, okay, we're doing this. Awesome. I'm going on my own.
That's awesome. So can you talk a little bit more about the conflicts? What are the typical kinds of conflicts? Is there patterns of, like, okay, so one group of people tends to have this and one group of people tends to have this, or is it different for absolutely everybody?
Well, there's 28 conflicts that have been identified.
Okay.
So not everybody has them all. It's just that we have a number of them. I've actually had the same one twice for myself. And they have different themes. They relate to the different chakras, and they have different themes. So, for example, the throat chakra is all about communication. One is perhaps too much, and the other one is perhaps not enough. So those are the two conflicts that lie there. There are, for example, the crown chakra conflicts. One would be distrust, so not trusting essentially the universe to provide. It could relate to relationships or people, but it's also related to personal intuition. There's one there called hard work, which has the theme of materialism. It actually used to be called materialistic, but it's not the greatest connotation. But the idea there is that life is a bit of a struggle, and those people work really hard for what they achieve, but at the same time, what they achieve it feels empty. There's another one there. I want to say it's called rigid beliefs. I can dive into my book, but it's about not being able to recognize how rigid your thinking is. So it's almost like extreme, for an example, be a very extremely religious person who can't see the box that they're living in. That would be an extreme example, but I mean, that can happen for anybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So those are just a couple of chakras worth of conflicts, but it's really interesting because one of the things that I've noticed, I think this might actually be one of the questions I gave you, but one of the things I've noticed in this distance testing and in being able to combine human design and psychosomatic energy therapy at the same time is that the root of, this is the theme of the thing, the root of the behavior is not necessarily what you think it is. So for a very specific example, the theme that I'm actually working on right now is called wanting more. So thinking I need to achieve more, do more, be more. It's never enough. The grass is always greener. I need to get over there. And over there, there's always another over there. Like it's like they can't find the pot of the gold at the end of the rainbow. It's essentially like that. And somebody that I was working with was trying to, they're into healing and stuff too. So they've learned about tapping and hypnotherapy and whatever. And they were finding that they were tapping to try to get rid of the blocks that stopped them from getting to where they wanted to go, as opposed to recognizing that the wanting more was the issue.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of how it works. Like it's this subconscious construct that keeps us behaving in a certain pattern. And we think that we need to be and act a certain way, and there's stuff blocking us there, whereas that's actually the block.
Interesting.
Right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Very cool. So what is the goal when someone's coming to you for a psychosomatic energy therapy session? What is the goal? Is it to get them to just get rid of that conflict, or what is your goal when you're working with your clients?
My goal when working with my clients is to help them see what is happening based on what conflicts are there and what can improve. So for example, I'll use myself as an example because I'm the one I know who's gone the furthest through this journey. When I first started this, I had a measurement of having access to about 25% of my physical and emotional energy, plus or minus. And I looked at that and I started crying, and I was like, yeah, I have to admit this to myself. This is where I feel I'm at. Like, I recognize this within myself. And there were a number of different organs that were out of balance, and I was like, okay, well, I don't want that anymore, so let's go. And I guess for me, like I'm a really deep thinker, analyzer. Like, I know I go a lot farther into an idea than some people might. But what I've really noticed is it not only does it change the way I think, it changes the way I view the world, but it shifts things physically, emotionally, mentally. I feel way more balanced. I don't feel like my gas tank is only a quarter full and I'm like struggling to get to the end of the day.
Mm.
It's also meant to help, like, I mean, it's an emotional therapy, so it's meant to balance the nervous system and help the digestion of emotions, life, the information we take in, and help us get to the center, the most centered that we can be. And that's the goal. I may have convoluted the question a little bit, but that's the end goal, to be able to let go of all of these things we think we need to be and do in the way we think life is, when really I hear a lot of people say this is how life is and this is how it has to be, and there's just an acceptance because they don't know how to change it.
Yeah.
This actually has the ability to change it because you see things differently, you start behaving differently, and it is a process. Like, the last little bit of the conflict I'm going through, holy smokes. I mean, we were just talking about what a bitch June has been.
Yeah.
This conflict has been another layer of that, where it's been a real struggle to get through, but the struggle is worth it. The light at the end of the tunnel is letting go of that which no longer serves you and being able to be your true self and not worry about these behavior patterns that have that you've acquired over your lifetime because of something that happened in your past. We don't need them anymore. We can let go of them.
Yes, it really can be that simple too. But it's like there's these parts of our brains that go, I've got to just keep holding on to it. I've got to hold on to it because I think a lot of times it's the fear of who do I become if I don't have this to hold on to any longer.
That's right. That's right. And there's, well, who would you become if you let go of all of these things? Let me ask that
everything I'm meant to be.
Exactly.
Like, it's beautiful. It really, really is. But when you're in the middle of it, it can feel scary. I know when I was taking the homeopathic remedies that you'd send home with me, it was like so much crying. I didn't even realize there was so much built up inside of me. And then it was like all of this releasing of, I don't even know what, it's just, it was a lot of releasing.
And I mean, like, because it is an emotional therapy, if I go to the human design aspect of it, the emotional center relates to the lungs, the pancreas, the nervous system, males is prostate and kidneys. But a lot of the acute stuff that I can test for, like the sympathetic nervous system being always in fight or flight, the parasympathetic nervous system not being able to raise up enough in order for rest and digest to occur, the nervous tension that some people can hold and they just can't let go of, even general anxiety, like that's all nervous system stuff. The nervous system is the emotional center. And one of the biggest challenges for us to learn as human beings is how to process emotions. I mean, it's this isn't a new topic by any stretch of the means. But this is another way of being able to process those things without having to go into, say, talk therapy or how can I put this? Without having to rehash a struggle with somebody in your life, you can actually do the work on your own to let go of what seems to be keeping you in a spot.
Yeah.
And what I have noticed over time personally, that in my own relationships, as I'm letting go of a conflict and working through it, that struggle reappears. But the purpose of it reappearing in everyday life is actually to relive it with a different perspective, small change every single time. And it doesn't come up every day, but it does arise. And there it is. It's like, okay, here's something I need to witness and learn and pay attention to. But at the same time, the wheel or the the wheels in the background have already spun so that they're in a different position for a different interaction to occur.
Awesome. And I think it's so important to talk about that piece, because a lot of times people think when they're healing that once it's healed, you're never going to have to deal with that again. But it does tend to show itself up to you again, so that you can get these different perspectives or witness it in a different way versus how you first experienced it whenever it first occurred in your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I guess the easiest thing for me to speak to would be one of the communication conflicts. So, for me, I had to dissolve not speaking my truth twice. It showed up twice for me. And it was also about not sharing my emotions, which would be speaking my truth, obviously. So, in that process, the first one was, it seemed to be more of a physical presence, because in not speaking my emotions, it was, okay, hang on. In not speaking my emotions, despite the fact that I consistently worked to share my truth with my partner, it was a difficult thing to do. So the strings were always tense. Anytime we spoke of anything emotional, it was like, oh my God, like we're not even, this is way too much to handle. But as I worked through the conflict, this is what I started to witness. It was easier for me to share my emotions and hold space for myself, but for him to not react as though he's at the other end of that really tight string, he was able to be more calm as well. And we were able to hold space for each other. And I was like, this is magic. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yeah. And that's one of the changes. Another, in dissolving that conflict and dissolving that first communication conflict, I had trouble with digesting gluten for probably years. I was probably on a gluten-free diet for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. And at the end of it, I was able to eat it again without consequence.
Wow.
And right. So part of it is not speaking my truth. I'm holding all of that nervous energy inside, which is creating inflammation somewhere. And especially with it being an emotional energy, it's potentially going, and sorry, let me connect this. With it being an emotional energy in my nervous system, potentially creating inflammation, it's also me not speaking my truth, which is affecting my digestion. So it's going to go into that digestive area. It's going to be stuck in that digestive area and cause trouble somehow.
Okay.
So that was kind of the mechanic, if I understand it correctly, through a human design perspective as well.
I love that you can bring the two of them in and kind of correlate how they're all going to be working together. That's fantastic, because it's such an enlightening session. If anybody wants to book a session with Sara, it is such an enlightening session for self-awareness, for understanding from the human design perspective as to why you are the way you are and why you think the way you think and all of that, but then also understanding those conflicts that you're holding on to and where you might need a little bit of a boost and stuff. Like it's fantastic work that you're doing, Sara. Like really fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
So what does the process or the journey look like for someone? As I talk about people coming to see you for an appointment, what would that look like for them?
Right. So the appointment is the first step. And it's very possible, much like my first step, it could be a little bit shocking because of, all of the stuff we hang on to. We don't realize what an effect it can have on us. But then there's the remedial journey. So upon first assessment, we figure out what the next steps are remedy-wise. And then once those are complete, then we come back for another assessment to see what's next. My journey has been, well, I wouldn't say long, but it's getting close to the end of the average. So my journey has been about 2 years so far. I wouldn't say I've been fully consistent with the remedies over the 2 years. But everybody, not only do we have these conflicts that hang around and have rooted because of things we've experienced, we also each have a central conflict, and there could be other people who have past life conflicts as well. I don't know if I'll have any of those. They haven't shown their face yet. But I haven't found my central conflict, and that's one of the biggest conflicts that exists to dissolve, and it has the longest, it takes the longest amount of time. So I would say I still have at least another year left in my journey to get rid of everything. And my goal is to get rid of everything because I want to see what it's like to be the true me without living with this stuff and having it affect my behavior and the way that I live and and the way my body functions in a potentially negative way.
So when you're talking about the conflicts, would these be things that, like, say an experience you had when you were, say, 4 months old? Okay. And is that then internalized into the body? And this is something that would show itself on there. Is it always stuff that people are remembering, or is it just kind of whatever those experiences are that you've just kind of taken in and absorbed as being something that you need to carry along with you?
It depends. It depends based on life experience. So with the measuring the size of the conflict, I can determine at what age it took root. And then there could be a specific memory from that time that relates to the theme that shows up or not. And some people are really aware of the conflicts that they have. Some people are not. They're just there, even though we don't know it. With that being said, it could, sorry, can you repeat your question again? There was something I'm missing there. It was something about
It was something along the lines of, is it, say something that happens when you're 4 months old and then you just kind of absorb it and that becomes part of the conflict. Is it like, I guess I'm going to actually elaborate on my question now. Is it something that has absolutely been repeated? So as you're talking about the throat and swallowing the emotions, I know this is something I've repeatedly done throughout my life, or have not given myself the opportunity to express myself. So would that become more of a central conflict versus, say, something where I didn't maybe follow my heart? And so that becomes a conflict that's separate because of one experience that I had with that.
So the central conflict is essentially chosen before you come into this life. So that's the central theme of what you're here to learn. The other stuff that shows up, like the not sharing of your emotions sounds like the conflict itself. So whatever the reason is, like whether it's being afraid to express them, or again, like my experience, like that nervous, that extreme tension where it's like, am I going to just make this room explode by sharing my emotions? Like that's what it felt like to me. It could be a number of reasons. So what happens is either there's a situation or a repeated situation that at some point makes the conflict take root. And at that point, it's just the amount of time that it has to grow.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So that's how I'm able to determine the age. So it's based on a percentage of your life. And then I do the math to figure out the age.
Okay. That's where the math comes in.
Yes. Yeah.
Awesome. So
Yeah.
Lisa is asking, if the individual doesn't remember the conflict, could it be more traumatic to an individual to then bring things up that they don't remember?
So how the session goes is when I identify what the conflict is, I read the theme of it, and then the person either remembers or not. And this is actually a really good tool of dealing with trauma, because I don't ask you, it's not necessary for the person to share what that trauma is. Only if they're open to, or they want to like discuss it more, discuss the themes, then I mean, it's what they're willing to share. Because of the type of therapy this is, the only people who are able to do talk therapy are like the psychotherapists, psychiatrists, and psychologists. So it's not about that at all. And it's actually in the work in creating this system. There was a German MD who created this system. he actually found that when talk therapy was combined with the remedies, it potentially slowed down the dissolution of the conflict because of that rehashing. So once it's identified, it's not even, we don't have to go into why it's there. I identify the age on purpose to identify what it could be, or for your information. I mean, I don't have to do that. I could, if there's a specific memory that somebody doesn't want to bring up. But the thing is the theme, and it's taking in the theme slowly, through the remedies and through the mantra that comes with the remedies, remembering the work and the achievement, that's about to come through the work. It's not about what happened. There is no reason to go back, perhaps other than the fact that that's potentially why that conflict is here. Does that answer the question?
I think so. I think so. I'll wait to see if Lisa asks any more on that.
Okay.
But I think it answers the question. So I really liked what you said there about how you're able to determine the age based on how big that percentage of the root issue has really become, because that creates such a good visual of where that conflict kind of gets planted, and then it just starts growing and growing and growing. Because I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, the session that I did with you, we went right to my central conflict, correct? Because you
I think so.
into this.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's like a lifelong learning thing for me.
Yeah.
And I literally put my heels in. I'm like, fuck.
Yeah. And and that's why it's interesting to me that there's only 28 conflicts. They've done their research to figure out if that was the maximum amount of number or if there was some that they were missing. But everybody experiences these conflicts in a different way. I mean, our lives are so unique. Our experiences are so unique. Yet these themes, it all comes down to these themes. So, yeah, like that to me, that juxtaposition, like the infinite uniqueness of a human being's life, and the fact that it comes down to 28 conflicts or a combination of them, it's fascinating to me. Like I can't explain it. I almost don't even want to explain it. Like I want to live in that fascination of it. But the way I was describing it the other day is when somebody first comes to me and I'm measuring them, it's like, oh God, okay, somebody needs to hear about the physics, because apparently I'm describing this.
Okay.
So, you know, like the edge of photographic film, how there's the like the holes, or like the real holes so it can spin. So initially when somebody comes, it's essentially like shining a light through those holes, and we get to see the wave of the person. This is the potential wave of the person. And a number of different conflicts might apply, some more pertinent than others. But there's one the body's ready to let go of. It's chosen that one. And then as we go through the work, as we are refining their energy, or I'm refining my energy, whoever's doing the work, we change the person from being a potential wave into the light particle. This is who they're meant to be. So it's a very specific form of them. And I mean, we live in conditioning. So as much as I'd like to say, you're going to stay that way, there's things that are going to happen in life that may or may not cause a conflict. And that's the whole other aspect of human design, to be able to teach somebody what they're meant to, how they're meant to live in, I suppose, a different perspective of looking at it, so that they can live more true to their energy and not have those conflicts take root again. And that's the juxtaposition of the two modalities. One is to take what's happened in the past and help you let go, and the other one is to step forward so that you don't take on anything else, and that you can release all those things and step into your true nature. It sounds so simple.
Yes, we tend to make it a lot more complicated than
Right?
what it needs to be. Yes, yes.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it can be simple. It can be, sorry, it is simple. It may not be easy. It could be like walking through the fire because, this stuff it's not something that's common, or like this kind of work is what we do. It's not mainstream. So you're walking through the hot coals to the other side potentially, but the release and the feeling of wholeness, dude, like I don't even know how to express that. It's just so wonderful to feel the pieces of me being revealed and coming back.
I love that. I absolutely love that. How many sessions then would you say? Because I know I had a lot of results from my first session, and then more came through in the second session. So, how many sessions would be normal for a person? I think you're your longest client right now. So, what would be the norm for people?
It really depends on the number of conflicts that are there. Generally, it would be one assessment per conflict. But depending on if there's other work being done or if there's something else that I would like to say reassess, like I've actually had a number of people or a number of clients recently who have tested that they're only ready for the acute remedies. So they're not ready to start dissolving a conflict. So after the first, because the acute remedies generally only take one round. So what I do is a quick assessment after that to see if they are actually ready for that specific conflict we measured initially, and then move forward. So it depends. But the ideal thing is to have an assessment and then go through the conflict and whatever else is there, and then test again afterwards.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So, can you talk more about the hidden roots of the behavior?
So I spoke a little bit about it in terms of the idea of wanting more. So I went through a number of conflicts that came up recently. Actually, there's two of them specifically, and one of them I didn't know why I was picking. So maybe somebody on the call needs to hear it. So the theme for one of them is called mental restlessness, and I'll read the issues addressed here. So the issues addressed are your mind is constantly active, you think about your obligations, and it seems that your thoughts never take a break. 1,000 thoughts whirl around in your mind. You have difficulty relaxing, you may experience tension, inner restlessness, worries, crowded thoughts, absent-mindedness, or mental nervousness. There may be deep feelings of dissatisfaction and underlying fears of loss of power or missing something. So, what I really took from reading that is that there is somebody who thinks they need to be certain about something. So their mind goes into overdrive trying to find that certainty, whereas really what they're meant to do is embrace the uncertainty and realize that the uncertainty allows their open mind to see a perspective that somebody with a fixed mind wouldn't necessarily see. It's also potentially about either a lack of focus or not knowing what to focus on, like what is the right thing to focus on. A lot of that comes to questions. So like, what questions are we supposed to be answering that potentially we're avoiding? Or are we just taking in all of the questions and thinking all of the questions need to be answered when really they don't? They could, but it's probably not likely. Also, okay, wait. It could be too thinking one needs to improve their focus to complete things. Like I can't get focused. So I'm whirling around in my mind of all the potential reasons or things that could happen from me not getting this done when really do you even need to do the thing? Yeah, or even like it's possible that something needs to be done, but there's all these like hanging questions. Like, do these questions need to be answered, or just does the thing just need to be done and then you can be done with it? that's kind of what I got from that. So the mental restlessness is thinking these questions need to be answered, or thinking that certainty needs to be there, when really you can just chill out and say, I don't know, it's cool. I'm going to let go of this.
Yeah. I think we were actually talking about that before we got on here, about realizing control of.
Yeah.
Control of.
Yes.
Sometimes it's easier to just go, okay, none of it's in my control. I'm just going to sit back and relax and just enjoy myself the best way I possibly can.
Totally. Totally. And I mean, I will address this too, because I recognize that this could be a potential outcome where, you're driving along on your own path, thinking that this is what, life is all about. And then all of a sudden you work through this conflict and like life turns upside down. Like that is totally a possibility. So you have to be willing to accept the potential for that. Whereas even if that happens, coming back to the center of you, there's something you need to find, there's something you need to experience based on that potentially tumultuous change. And that's totally okay. Like, whatever the path is, it's about being okay with what arrives as you're walking it.
And I love that idea, of just, okay, this is what it is. Awesome.
Totally. I was describing my current experience as like being like, I'm in a straw right now, folded in some way, and I'm being squeezed through it. Like that's what I felt like for the past few days. And I'm just like, whoa.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Have someone blow.
Oh my God. No, like just
all the way out.
I just want it to happen slowly right now.
Okay.
Yeah. But that's it. Like, I guess for me, like there's a structure, like I give a structure of how to take the remedies and like an idea of what's going to happen. But there's also been a number of people who can't take the whole dose or feel like they can only take one dose a day. And that's okay, because it's about what you need to go through. Like maybe you need that extension because there's a deeper experience, or maybe you need to pause because something's happening in this period of time and then you start again afterwards. Like I'm very open to not knowing the timing for everybody, because everybody knows their own timing. However, this is where it gets tricky, because in telling people this, the mind can jump in and the mind can be like, oh, I don't need to do this today, when really you should be doing this today. So really knowing what is actually right for you instead of what you think is right for you. That's the trick.
Yes. For sure.
Yes.
I know for myself, there was like periods of time, and I still go through periods of time where I'm taking the remedies that you gave me. And then there's periods of time where my mind is going, no, not today. And that's probably when I should be doing it the most.
Well, again, like you know your human design, so that would be my guidance in that moment. What is it that you actually need to be doing? And I mean, there's days where I walk out of the house and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't take them, but my body walked me right out of the house, and that's what I'm supposed to be following. And it's okay. I give myself permission to be like, okay, well, if I come in and I remember, then I'll take them then. And if not, well, tomorrow's another day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I love the non-judgment of
it. Yeah, right. Well, because we each have our timing, and God, I mean, I can't even explain my own timing. Never mind why it's happening for somebody else. There's just something that needs to align, and that's really what it's all about.
And do you find people are looking for more of a quick result with it, or are they okay with taking the whole journey of it? Because healing to me just doesn't happen like that, even though that's kind of the society that we're in right now, is to have the instant results.
Yeah, I have found that to be one of the challenges, where there's some people who just haven't felt a thing. And I'm like, well, I don't know what to say, because there's one person in particular who, even prior to our consultation, I felt that they were like this extremely blocked person. Like there was another reason that I was able to come about that information. And even in our session, I was expressing that, but I mean, it's up to that person to hear what I'm saying or not, however their experience is meant to be. And then know that there's a process and know that, you know, it might take longer than one round for something to show up. Like there's different, and the results are quite subtle too. Like, as I mentioned earlier, like I analyze things really deeply, and I'm paying attention to those subtle energy changes of the people around me. I want to be aware of that. And we're only as aware as we can be. So depending on what changes are happening, maybe they're too subtle, or maybe they're meant to be, like maybe you're not meant to feel them because, you know, the wheels are turning. I don't I wish I could say that, you know, it's evident the entire way through, but it's not. And that's part of the journey.
So when you talk about, you know, kind of these subtle energy changes, what kind of examples can you give for what those subtle energy changes might be for people?
So I'll go back to my exchanges with my partner and I, because that's a really good example, however it shows up. So for me, what I've seen is the way something is said, or for example, I guess the last interaction that really showed difference was how we were able to just truly sit in our emotions as hard as they were. There was something that I needed to accept and see that I wasn't able to before. So that was a big deal for me. And I saw it, like, June being a bitch. This was the theme for the entire month of June. And I'm like, okay, I'm listening. I hear you. And it was literally like, it was like a window opened and I was able to get a different breeze. And it's that subtle. Like, it's just a shift where I'm not looking at it this way, I'm looking at it this way.
Okay.
And it's kind of like that. And that's where, if situations arise related to that theme, it's going to keep ticking away until the theme is gone. And
so kind of like a kaleidoscope. Where you keep seeing different pieces of it, and it's all beautiful, but it's a kaleidoscope that shifts so subtly. I love that.
Yeah. I was actually going to describe the way we experience conflicts, because they're subconscious or unconscious. And I hope this works, because I love this idea. When I was in the car and I'm driving and I'm looking out all my mirrors. And when these conflicts take root, it's like somebody's changed our mirrors into funhouse mirrors, yet we can't tell the difference. And here we are swerving all over the road, wondering why people are honking at us, when really it's our mirrors that are the issue. We can't see things the way we need to see them because of a distortion of some kind.
Interesting. That's a really, really great way of putting it, actually.
Yeah. I'm glad it worked. Yay.
I love metaphors when it comes to this stuff, because when I can see the visual of what someone's talking about, it helps me understand it at a much deeper level. So,
yeah. So, I mean, we've got these mirrors, and it could be that the mirrors are just shifting a little bit back to normal. And again, being so subtle, it's possible we don't notice that the shifts are happening.
Yeah. Okay. And what would you say is the biggest benefit that you've seen for people so far? I mean, to me, it's resolving these conflicts, because I see the world in chaos right now, and I'm like, Christ, if the entire world just start taking this stuff.
Right. Just take a chill pill, have some remedies, and like go work on their own stuff and not worry about everybody else. Wouldn't it be great?
Yeah.
I totally agree. But we're only here to save a certain, like, our own number of people, however we've predetermined it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So is this one of my questions? I had an answer earlier if this is one of my questions.
This is one of your questions, yeah.
I think the biggest benefit is seeing the collective result. So seeing each person shed what is no longer serving them. They've learned that lesson, they're ready to let go, and seeing them step into like a new form of self, or just having that not there. And because a lot of being a reasonably new practitioner, a lot of the people who I've worked with are within my periphery. So I've had a lot of close personal relationships improve. I've seen them improve for themselves. And and yeah, like I think it's just seeing people lighter. Like they've let go of something that was weighing them down that they didn't know was there. And I mean, when we talk about energy stuff, like how is there a weight aspect to it? But it's literally a weight aspect. Like when you get rid of a problem and you feel it pressing down on your shoulders and you can stand up and breathe, it's like that. And being witness to that, I think personally is the biggest benefit, and seeing the change that it can create, that ripple effect that it can have.
Love it. So who would you say is your ideal client to come in? I know right now you've kind of got the area that you have. So what would you say is the ideal person for you?
Somebody who is ready. I mean, we all want people who are ready. But for me, like, because it is a journey, both the energy therapy and the human design, it's a lifelong experiment. Once you enter into it, somebody who is ready to take that step forward and to step into who they're truly meant to be. Yeah, that would be my ideal client. I mean, I don't even need a location anymore because I can do this distance, which is amazing. Like, I didn't know before COVID I could do this distance. I thought I had to be in person, but no, like I've tested people around the world at this point, and it's so cool to see that the same results can show up no matter where we are.
Yeah.
Like that's really cool. But yeah, the person who is ready to explore and dive into what they potentially can't see and gain a fundamentally new perspective on life and how to live it. That's again, it sounds so simple. It sounds so wonderful. But yes, that would be my ideal client.
Okay, awesome. And how would you say people can know that they're ready? Would it just be like, because I know for myself, I had heard about it from Christy Smallman, and she was so excited about it. And as soon as she told me, I was like, I need that. And I really booked the appointment with having no idea what it was I was stepping into whatsoever. So how would someone know that they're ready for something like this? Would it just be that strong pull to a yes?
That's a really good question. Because even like a conversation I had last night with a girlfriend, she's like, "This is some next level shit." I'm like, "How do I tell people that? I don't know, other than to say it is literally that." It's yeah, like it's a completely new perspective on what is. So yeah, I'm gonna say yeah, just that strong pull. What are you curious? Are you ready to let go of what is no longer serving you? And I mean, it doesn't have to be this journey you step into and you walk fully. Like it could be like the Camino. You show up and you do a quarter of it, and then you stop and you come back 10 years later and you do another portion of it, whatever. But yeah, like especially people who feel like stuck, frustrated, they've tried a whole bunch of things and they're not able to let go of what those patterns are that are causing them stuckness. This is like that little window that opens that you can crawl through, or it could be this door that blows wide open. It really depends on the person and their experience of it, really.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And is there any books or anything like that out there, or places that people can go to get information about it so they can learn about it prior to booking a session with you?
So the company that creates the remedies, I don't know if they're specifically the company that created the Reba device, but they would have worked with the company that did. They're called Rubimed, Rubimed. The company in Canada that would have the most amount of literature that sells the remedies is called Biomed. Let me just actually double check their website. Biomed. So they are biomedicine.com.
Okay.
Um,
Now, would that give kind of like, is it a smart idea for someone to understand the remedies prior to, or is it better to just kind of go in blindsided and see what it is that your body needs rather than trying to decide or learn about prior to?
So as far as I've looked, I haven't dug very far, but you can't find the list of conflicts.
Okay.
You can find the titles of them, but like the deeper information. I mean, I have patient guides and I have my own practitioner guide that goes really deep into them. There used to be a website that had the actual conflicts listed. But honestly, it really doesn't matter because it's not a mind thing. I'm not measuring what your mind is wanting to do. I'm measuring what your body is ready for.
I love that.
So, yeah. So, yeah, you don't really get to pick.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough. And do you have any advice or final words of wisdom that you would like to share with everybody that's on the live tonight?
Ooh. Words of wisdom. No. I'm just happy to be with everybody here. I mean, I'm happy to share what my modalities are, and I mean, if you're looking for a specific change or a really deep change, I'm a practitioner who has the potential to facilitate that. And I would love to enter into a journey with anybody who is willing. In terms of wisdom, learn your inner wisdom. I mean, there is one within you, so do what you can to connect with it. And I'm happy to also help with human design in that respect because it teaches your inner wisdom. It is literally what will, your inner authority is what drives what's best for both your personality and your body. And I mean, if that's something you're looking for, I can help with that too.
Awesome. And do you, because I know you were on, I think it was back in January. I think you were actually my very first in the
I
spot.
was, yes.
So, and we had talked about human design at that point. So people can go back to the January post and watch about human design so they can learn a little bit more about that. But for anyone that's on here tonight that wasn't actually on that call, can you just give a brief as to what human design is?
So human design is brief. Okay. Human design is essentially a map of who you are as a person and how you're best meant to interact with the world. And the idea of that is to be able to step forward into your true self in a different way. So the energy therapy is about letting go what is stuck, and human design is about stepping forward into your true decision making and becoming a witness to the life that you're meant to lead. Wow. So it's essentially a very accurate representation, similar to astrology, but way different. It's a way different way of explaining who you are as a person. And I mean, yeah. is there anything maybe you could guide me to be more specific about? I feel like
I just want, because I know with my session, I had the psychosomatic energy session followed by the human design, and they just mesh so well together. Because I know when you were doing the human design, then you were reverting back to what the machine had said and how that was playing in with the human design and stuff. And I want people to understand how perfectly it all fits together.
Very lovely. I mean, the psychosomatic energy therapy system works with chakras, but the way that I connect the two is with any organ imbalances that show up. I can speak to the specific centers because we're 9-centered beings. According to human design, we're no longer 7-centered beings, although the chakras still have application. It's that I can see that, and I can see the flow, and I can feel the strength of what is most out of balance. And some people, like I've even been able to put together essentially a sentence of how they think they've been meant to live, or the struggles that they're experiencing based on all of the stuff that comes together. So it's a form of coaching as well. So here is your design, here is the stuff that probably stands out to you in your life experience, and here are the things that I see based on the organ energetics from the testing. So yeah, it's an identification and a coaching session if you do both together.
I absolutely love that.
Yeah, thank you.
Is there anything else that you're wanting to share about the psychosomatic energy therapy?
I don't think so. I had another theme set up, but I think we're running out of time. So I'll leave it. The theme was distrust. If anybody wants to reach out
Let's
and
go into it.
you want to? Okay. Okay, let's do it. Okay. So this is related to the 7th chakra. It was one of the ones I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
The issues addressed here are: you appear optimistic on the outside, but have a deep underlying feeling that things are not going to work out. You are skeptical and do not trust others easily. You want proof before you will believe. You question everything. Past disappointments have left you hurt, and opening up emotionally or asking for help makes you feel vulnerable. You are more comfortable figuring things out on your own, and you do not trust your inner voice or intuition. So, I mean, that sounds pretty challenging. It sounds like interacting with the world with that conflict. This is a conflict I don't relate to so much, so it's probably not in my span of things, but this is one that's come up a couple times for me with clients. I would say that in not trusting the world, there is a feeling of not knowing what to focus on. Again, wanting that feeling of certainty. Potentially feeling the need to prove self to others, to maybe to create trust, or to create trust in self even. There could be a not knowing of which voice within to listen to, because there's some people who have more than one voice that can kind of speak, so to say. So it could be that the voice that is being listened to is not the voice that is going to tell you all the time what's correct for you. And it could be that potentially as a child, or as a young impressional being, or even later in life, but probably more in the formative years, that there was a situation that person entered into that created that distrust. So there could be the thought of needing to be certain, or the thought of needing to build a connection, but there's always that, there's always going to be that sensation, that subconscious, this isn't going to work out, or this isn't the right thing, or the mind and the authority seem to be in competition, where the mind is doing more of the decision making. And that's, no one's going to like this, but that's not how anybody is meant to make decisions. Nobody is meant to make decisions through the mind. I think that's one of my favorite things to say. So yeah, so like when it comes to the hidden behaviors, it would be the not knowing where to find that information that's right for you. And I could see a number of different designs having this challenge, quite a bit actually. So yeah, that was the last thing I wanted to share.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing it, because I think it's interesting, because as you're reading both, I can actually see different pieces of both. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably one of my conflicts, because I know I've struggled with this at this point or whatever. So Thank you so much for sharing those with us.
Yeah,
If
you're welcome.
anybody is wanting to reach out to Sara, her website is www.theconsciouspassenger.com. And she's also on Facebook at facebook.com/theconsciouspassenger. So thank you so much, Sara, for joining us. Next
Thank you.
week, we have joining us Maximilian Webster, and he is a life coach who's coming on to talk to us about love thy neighbor, how to deal with conflict within yourself. So kind of along the same ideas of conflict right now, but it should definitely be a really interesting conversation to have, and I hope that you guys will all join us. Thank you again, Sara, for coming on and for sharing all of your gifts with us. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Good night.